Good evening, que Madre listeners. Unfortunately, Jess has a little tummy bug, so she can't join us tonight. But I am joined by Maria Larios-Horton, who is an amazing leader in our community, works for the Santa Barbara Unified School District. Maria, can you share with folks your title?
Sure. It's really long, and it's executive director of diversity, equity, and family engagement.
Yeah, that is a mouthful. So that
It is.
you are in charge of a lot of work, which is why you're still at your office right now at
Yes,
7 o'clock at
correct.
night on a weekday.
Yes. Yeah.
Well, thank you so much for making the time to join us. I've actually been wanting to have this conversation with you for a long time, so glad that
Mhm.
it's finally happening. And it's interesting circumstances, right? Because we just had our election yesterday, still waiting for results. How are you feeling about everything?
Um, you know, I think no matter what happens, we have to continue to really be very intentional about our energy and where it goes. And maybe I say this because I'm middle aged and I have to be careful, right? About I don't have that abundance I used to have in my 20s. Hi, Gloria. And so I have to like consider where this is going to go. And so to me, the energy that I would have expended perhaps staying up really late to view election results, I preferred to just, the outcome isn't going to change if I watch the results until 1 a.m. It's going to be better that I, you know, reserve that energy and put it toward the team that I get to lead here. And it's an amazing team. Our language access unit provides language access for thousands of families on the daily. Our family engagement unit comes to work with heart and soul every day, giving more than 100% to serve our families. And we talked a lot about what's happening today, and what's been happening. And we just continue to be like recommitted to this work that we do, and actually like take it as like, okay, we can do this another 4 years. And we know and we knew that it has to get this bad for it to get better, for us to see a new world. There has to be some hardship there, and this is it. So while we experience that, we're going to recommit to serving our families in the best way that we can. And we talked candidly about how this team of Latinos and that I get to lead, we are the people who this president doesn't like. We are those people, but we're going to take that and turn it into something positive for our community. So that's where we are today.
Yeah, that's a trip, right? Like just recognizing that we are the people that, this president and the folks who support him hate. And so how do we move? My doggy just decided to join us. Ibuki. Say hi, Ibuki. Um, so how do we move beyond that hate? How do we move beyond that fear? Right?
Mhm.
Because it's not like these folks are gonna, you know, go somewhere else. And so like here in Santa Barbara County, we have to deal with like fair education folks, right? Who don't think we should have ethnic studies in our school district. And when I know for me, ethnic studies was life changing, and I was so upset that I had to wait until the university to have my first ethnic studies class, right? Um, and it's just really exciting to see that now ethnic studies is being implemented at the Santa Barbara Unified School District. And, it's not easy, it's a difficult process, but at least we're doing it now, right? Because we could still be in the days where we were not even considering it yet.
Yeah. I feel so fortunate to be living in this community with so many people who have fought to make ethnic studies a requirement. And just thinking about some of the things I've seen people post, today, and just some consternation around how people that even look like us, you know, voted for this president, right? Like how, what is that? Why, and I think Simone posted something like that. And it made me think that a lot about ethnic studies. It made me think about how now it's making me think about what you just said, which is you had to wait so long to receive the kind of education that would, or the learning that would really make you go, and really wonder and question, right? The status quo. And so I often think about people like that who vote against their own interests. And it makes me think about how ethnic studies is a form of education for liberation. And we are not necessarily set up in that way currently to educate, to liberate our children, and especially our most underserved, right? And so it's really great that we have ethnic studies and we have it as a requirement. And we need to do more. We need to start when they're little. We need to make sure that our children know how to question their surroundings, how to question what they're being taught, how to wonder about why such a thing needs to be the way it is. And so I have a lot of hope. In talking to a colleague this morning, she mentioned how she's really curious about how our younger voters voted. Like that to me would be really great data, because I do have hope in the younger generation who are hopefully being way more critical about what they're consuming, about what they're learning, and get to a place where things aren't so bad for some people. So yeah.
Well, as you said, I think in that posting that you're talking about regarding Simone's posting, that all skin folk are not kinfolk. And that's real, but also I think part of that is because people are living with a lot of self-hate, and that self-hate is not necessarily self-imposed. It's imposed by a society that continues to demonize Black, Indigenous people of color. So, we're taught to believe that we're criminals, that we're all these things that we know, that our folks are just trying to like work hard and lift up their families. And I just wish that those people who have all that self-hate could take an ethnic studies course, because I bet most of them have never taken an ethnic studies course, to find out about their history, to find out about the contributions that their folks have given to our communities. Because I think they wouldn't believe and feel the way that they do now if they had, because that fosters a sense of self-love and, just a sense that you don't have to audition for your humanity.
Yes. Or constantly feel like you have to legitimize your experience or your knowledge, or, and I really relate to what you said about how you had to wait till you were in college to take an ethnic studies class. And I'm in the same boat. It wasn't until I was a student at Cal State University Northridge that I took my first real ethnic studies course. I think I may have taken one at CC, but something that I felt immediately as I was, learning about our own Chicano history and Mexican American history was I stood taller. I felt better. Like, wow, like no one told me this. And there was a saying that my professor would say all the time, and it was la cultura cura, and to me that's been like what was that?
Did you take a class with Rudy Acuna?
I cannot remember my professor's name. Was he a professor at CSUN?
Yeah.
Okay, probably. But it was like, yes, like the more that I learned, the better I felt about myself. It was like so healing, in a way that's indescribable, like indescribable how I felt. And I thought, why all this pain and suffering? this whole, like my entire educational career, thinking that I was less than or not smart enough or whatever, or that my people, you know, had nothing to contribute to the greatness of this state even. And to learn about that really just, it actually, it was healing, but it also caused a lot of like anger. Like I was angry that we had to wait. We had to wait that long to learn. And it has to be different. It needs to be different for the sake of our children, for the sake of, you know, our community and our humanity. Like we all deserve to know that we are genius, that we are beautiful and smart and intelligent, and maybe not in the way that certain tests make us out to be, or certain, you know, expectations make us out to be, but we are genius because of who we are. And so I think it's just really interesting that this, like today's conversation I had with my team, turned to education. Like if there is a place to be at this time, it is right here in education. So that's how we made out this whole connection to why it's so important, right? To keep working at education. We've got to fix it. It's got to be different.
Yeah, and since we're talking about education, we've talked about ethnic studies, but would love to talk a little bit more about like dual immersion classes and language access and standardized testing, right? Because those are all major issues affecting our community. I know my daughter's in a dual immersion class, not in the same school district, but I was really happy that last week they actually had an exercise where already in kindergarten they had two columns, one for Halloween, one for Dia de los Muertos,
Oh,
that they could differentiate like one from the other, right? Because they tend to
yes.
get lumped in a lot, and just like teaching them about their culture. She got to show off her altar that she made for her sister to her classmates. So I just thought how beautiful that was, and just that validation, right, of our culture is so beautiful. And the other thing that has been surprising to me is as a parent, like having to be pretty much a teacher's assistant and sitting in class with her every day, is how triggered I am by different experiences that she has on a daily basis in schooling. For example, standardized testing, right? It's like, for my 5-year-old to be going through standardized testing already is like, what the F word? I don't want it to get bleeped out, so I'll just say what the
Yeah.
F, because I don't think that 5-year-olds should be given standardized tests. But I don't know if there's any movement on that um, kind of level around the Santa Barbara Unified School District, if there's any talk about changing the amount of testing that kids are going through. And I know a lot of that is statewide regulations, but yeah, any thoughts that you have on either of those topics?
Yeah. Definitely a topic that has been at the forefront of the movement to kind of reimagine, re-envision what assessment looks like. And we know that what we test for tends to be driven by a certain way of knowing and being and a certain language, right? Like, so we test to a norm that is very different from half of the students that attend our public schools. So if you haven't had an opportunity to read books like Dr. Ibram Kendi's How to Be an Anti-Racist, he speaks to a standardized testing and black and brown youth in chapter 8 of his book. Dr. Bettina Love, who's written a lot around abolitionist teachings, talks a lot about standardized testing. So there is afoot a greater awareness around how biased these assessments are towards certain groups of students. So there is talk. The assessment and standardized testing movement is strong. It's very strong. So to change that all of a sudden, it's going to take some time, but we have to keep pressing and pushing for a reimagining of what how we assess what we want students to know and be able to do, and what we consider to be, you know, what it is that students should know. And so this is like an existential question, like what I would expect you and me to know coming from immigrant families, should look and feel a little different, because we have different experiences, and what we bring is also very valuable. It's a different kind of knowing. So I would hope that before I retire, that happens, right, at a state level. So, but it hasn't. So that's a lot of pressure on districts to prove to their communities that we are making progress with our students. Unfortunately, there's always that pressure. But when teachers learn more about how to assess to then support students, especially students who, for example, are learning English as an additional language, the more that they know, the better able they are to ask students different kinds of questions, and in different ways to really get at what students know. I don't know if I've answered your question, but
No,
it's
it does. I mean, I think people don't know how valuable they are. Like we don't realize what treasures we are, what unique gifts and talents we all have. And it's because we're taught to feel shame about certain things that we should be proud of. Like being bilingual growing up, there were a lot of spaces where I felt like, oh, in this space I shouldn't speak Spanish. For example, when we were crossing the border, my parents would always say, okay, stop speaking Spanish, so that they
I
could,
do know. I actually do know. Yes.
yeah, they could, let us cross and like not give me trouble and think, whatever. So, just how do we get rid of all that shame that is attached to us for growing up with the experiences that we have? Because when we're able to get rid of that shame, we're able to let our light shine through. And I think that that has everything to do with education.
Absolutely. And for so long, I mean, since I'm going to date myself, but when my first year teaching was the year right after Proposition 227 passed, which was the proposition that abolished all bilingual education. And so for a very long time, our children who come to school with speaking a language other than English were basically being asked to like leave your language and your culture at the door when you walk into the classroom. And so we missed an opportunity to really help our children like use their first language to learn a second language, because that's all the research points to that. And also, we cannot forget that for folks like us, language is tied to identity. So we cannot, the moment that you ask me to stop speaking my first, you're actually asking me to leave my identity at the door. And so think back to history, right? Of all the times that our children, our Native American First Nation children who were stripped of their language and their culture in these like boarding schools. It's detrimental. It is harmful. It is harm. It is harm that we do in schools to students. And the moment that our children lose touch with their identities and their language, we're also impacting their ability to connect with their parents, with their abuelitos. And children we're always going to look for belonging somewhere. In the moment I cannot talk to my mommy or my abuelita, I'm going to go look somewhere else to feel that belonging. And so it's just so like people don't realize how important it is. Like you don't have to have 50 dual language immersion programs in a district to provide this experience to our children. I can come into a monolingual English classroom with an English only speaking teacher, but what my teacher does in the classroom and what she says and what she has on her walls and the books that she has on her, or they have on their bookcases, all of those things matter, right? So I think it's like it's so important that we never like split language and identity. They're one, and so that is why like our district is at the point of beginning all of this work. It's long coming in our school district, and so we're just going to kind of keep pressing forward on those ideas, because our children's lives literally are at stake when they lose language, when they lose that ability to communicate with their families.
Definitely. And I love the work that you're doing at the district. Also, I want to validate and recognize that you are not only your job title and what you do professionally, you're also a mother, you're also a badass, Chicana. So can you tell me about what your journey has been like and what led you to this work?
Oh my gosh, I'm gonna cry. Well, I first of all, most people who know me, I was not born in this country, so I was undocumented until I got to high school, and I grew up in a pretty hard place. I grew up near here, not in Santa Barbara, but I grew up near here. And I have to tell you, it was hard. It was really hard being undocumented, having a younger brother who was very ill all the time. And so I was the one navigating, right, all these medical things for my family, being the firstborn. So my experiences in education, my experience being a language broker for my family, has created me. Like it's made me who I am. The hardships and the experiences have led me to this work. I've known since I was in first grade that I wanted to be a teacher, because I had a really kind teacher in first grade, and that was the grade where my father was deported. So that teacher made me feel so like cared for. And I thought, I want to do what that teacher does. I want to be that person, even though I can't communicate with her because I didn't speak any English and she didn't speak any Spanish. She's still alive, by the way, and she's my Facebook friend. I love her, Mrs. Johnson. And so I just always knew that my bad experiences in school, both good and bad, like I could, if I could be a teacher, I could do better by our students. So yeah, I mean, I think that's why I'm here, because I started out as a teacher and I loved it, and then just kind of got into these different roles. But I'm a mommy. I had my son when I was 18 years old. So he's all of 27, a wonderful young man. And then my chiquita Isabel is a sophomore at Cal. And she'll actually be home tomorrow for a couple of days. And I just really miss her. I miss her so much. So yeah. And my husband, Greg, who takes good care of me, cooks for me, cares for me. Otherwise I wouldn't be here at at this hour. So
well, yeah. Much props to badass first grade teachers. I know I have a yes. First grade teacher too, Miss Yamada. If you're out there listening, yeah. Please send me an email. I would love to reconnect. Because honestly, I hated kindergarten so much. Oh. No, I mean, and I think it was just that introduction into, like institutionalized education. It's like hard to go from the home to the school, like just that transition. But so being a mom, what was that like for you, and what did that do for who you
are? Well, as a mom, I always,
I'm not trying to say just the good stuff. If there's hard stuff, we can talk
about. Oh, there was hard stuff for sure, like a lot of hard stuff. And I to this day, I tell my kids that I wish I'd been a better mommy, because I am a workaholic. I will tell you this, and you probably already guessed it, but I was a workaholic, and I spent a lot of time at work, and I bring my kids with me. I mean, my kids lived in my classroom when I was teaching. Sundays, I mean, we were there all day Sundays. I mean, it was just it was the life, right? And it was hard because I did give up my first marriage didn't go well, the father of my children, like it just didn't go well. So I kind of like feel like there was a lot of hardship. Um, and when I go to tell my kids, like I wish I was more present, I wish I was more available, I wish this and that. You know what they say to me? They say, you know what, mom, you doing what you do has been more of a gift to us than you having been home. You know, because I probably at home I would have been like, go do this and go do that and go, you know, I don't know, but that's what they say. You know, so I think they're like adults now, and for them to say that to me, it's like, okay, well, even though I might think I could have done a better job, they certainly don't think so. They think that, you know, it's they learned a lot from watching me, I guess is the answer to that one. Um, but it's never easy to be a mommy, and it's no one's perfect at it. Um, but if you can be there when they really need you, they will remember that. They will remember that. And you're such a good mom, Gloria. I see you. You are. I like if I were to do it all over again, I would be like, I want to be like Gloria. Like I mean, like Anna. I want to be like you are with Gloria, because it's just so beautiful the way you attend to her, and you know, that's just comes with like a lot of years of you know. And I was so young, so that's I would probably do it all over again. I would want to do it like you.
You're so sweet. I mean, I think I have a unique experience, and I'm, there's probably others that do, but I think losing my firstborn just completely changed my view of life and what matters. And I also am a workaholic, though, so um, my solution has been just to bring my daughter with me to everything.
Yeah.
That way, she experiences it all, and she actually gets what I do so much better than I thought she did. And she's so sweet and like loving. Yesterday, I was on the phone all day doing get out the vote calls with Cause Action Fund, um, and she was like sitting on my lap while I did them. And in between calls, she would say, "My mommy's saving the world. My mommy's saving the world." Like, where does she get this stuff? But I think our kids show us probably more than we teach them, right?
Absolutely. They're watching. They're watching us. And so important to remember that.
And how about being a person of faith? How has that affected the work that you do? I know we both go to the same church, so I wanted to ask that.
Yeah. Oh my gosh. Wow, you're good at this interview. Um I I'm sure I don't I mean I don't I'm sure a lot of people know, or people if people don't know, I left church a long time ago, and it was really hard to go to a church that really just didn't it was like not it was hard. It was hard to leave the church, a church that you've known your whole life. And there comes a time where you realize that there isn't um, agreement between what it's teaching and what you believe and what you've taught your children to believe. And so many years ago, I can't remember how many years, my kids could tell you because we all decided this together, even though my little one was very little. Um, and so I've been away from church for a long time and wasn't really looking. Like I wasn't looking to see where else. I mean, I just kind of needed some space between what had happened with my previous religion, and so it happened by just like mere um, serendipity, you know, like where God put Pastor Moore in my path, and it was magical. Like I have been I don't know. I want to say I've been saved. And I love it. I love being part of a community that believes in the Jesus that I've always thought was the real true Jesus. So that's where we are. I just talked to Pastor Moore earlier today. Like, it's just, it's amazing. It's amazing. It's an amazing community full of love and care for one another. It's fantastic. Yeah. I'm sure you feel the same way.
I do feel the same way. I mean, I had Gloria likes to photobomb.
I love it.
Every
Hi,
I have.
I love her name. It's my mommy's name. My mommy's name is Gloria.
Oh, look, my mom's name.
Oh, I love her energy.
Yeah, I've been in church before with in Santa Rosa de Lima, actually in Maywood. Our priest was an activist priest, where he really fought for immigrant rights and helped us stop the checkpoints because police were towing immigrants' cars, pretending like it was driver's license checkpoints, or excuse me, sobriety checkpoints, but it was really, to take immigrants' cars. And so I did have the experience before of being in a church where social justice was part of the mission. And since moving up here, I have been craving, finding that space again. So Pastor Moore has definitely been a gift.
Gloria, did you go vote with your mommy? Did you go vote?
We sent our ballot with my husband, so he delivered the ballot.
Nice. I used to love to take my kids to the precinct.
Yeah, this year was a little bit different because of all the, COVID-19 protocols.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Well, I don't know what the latest is. I haven't been checking. I've been counting electoral votes over here for the remaining states, and I'm feeling hopeful. We'll see.
Okay, Gloria wants to show off the altar that she did for her sister.
Oh, I want to see. Oh,
de las angelitas.
Oh, I see cempasúchil. I see velitas. I see,
paper ones, and Daddy made these for her.
Wow. That is a very precious altar. I see a lot of love in that altar.
Mom made,
Yeah, she made her that mermaid candle herself.
Wow.
I need a mermaid.
Nice. Very, very beautiful.
Yeah, for different occasions, she'll just put a present on her altar.
Aww.
And then she really likes this Virgen.
Oh, that's so pretty. I love that.
Virgen.
Yes.
It's
beautiful.
And Miss.
Aww.
And behind here is.
Wow.
An angel wind chime.
Very nice. Gloria, have you seen the movie Coco?
Yeah. Oh.
You like it?
Almost like 2 times. Beautiful.
Oh, beautiful.
Yeah, it's rose quartz, huh?
Wow. There's a lot of things on that altar.
And there's this so glow, but doesn't really have blue so in it.
Oh.
Or you still have chocolate on your mouth. You had chocolate ice cream for dessert.
That's great. That's So chocolate is chocolate kind of night, that's for sure.
Oh yeah, I also had some. So since we're talking about dessert, we got to talk about conchas.
Oh,
So I have
yes.
our confession. When
It's
my
our
dad and I had
secret.
dinner-
It's our secret though,
we can't share it?
remember?
Okay, we can't share it. But I will say that you make amazing pumpkin spice conchas.
Oh yes, thank you so much. Yes. We try, you know, that fusion, right? I almost thought like, oh, someone's gonna like be upset that I'm even like creating this fusion of like this pumpkin spice and conchas, but they're pretty good.
They're very good.
I've been baking with my friend, and it's just been so. I used to not like to be in the kitchen at all because growing up, cooking was very stressful. Like my mother worked, and so cooking was never like a joyous occasion in my home. It was always like, oh, I've got to go home and cook. And my mom, you know, my mom was just always just, it was stressful. And so I never really learned to cook or bake. And so I've just tried to challenge myself to do something that I normally wouldn't want to do and kind of just try to retrain my brain. It's also really therapeutic to just be focused on this one thing that requires your full attention. And you're not thinking about work or you're not thinking about this or that. You're just kind of focused on the science of baking. So it's been therapeutic and tasty.
Yeah, I've actually found a love of cooking during the pandemic, which I never had before. Stop trying to take off my shawl, Gloria. I'm just wearing a tank top under this. And I just think baking is still a mystery to me, though. I've never tried baking anything really. Oh, I did try baking cookies once. You have blankets over there, baby. Not trying to, yeah, do all this right now.
Yeah.
But yeah, conchas seem difficult to bake. What's the secret?
Well, you have to make the dough ahead of time. That's one secret. And always, you know, be what is the word? Generous with the butter. And sure, it'll add a few more calories, but also delicious. So that's the other secret.
I don't think people should be mad about the pumpkin, though. I think these are the days of like fusion everything, right? Everyone's mixing everything.
Right? Yes. Yeah. I mean, I a year and a half ago, we took a trip through Europe for my daughter's high school graduation. It was like her present, and we went to 3 different countries with the best food in the world, really. I mean, if you think about it, Italy, France, and Spain. But I have to tell you, there is nothing that I ate that was close to as good as a taco. So I love me some Mexican food. That is like the best in the world, in my opinion. The very best. The sazon, the flavors, how you prepare it, the best. In fact, in Spain,
Anthony Bourdain really made an effort to show, right, is the culinary breadth of Mexican food, which usually is not exposed. It's like only one, you know, like people only know our cuisine for a couple of items, but Mexican food is actually very diverse.
Oh yeah, very, very much so. And people are starting to figure it out, though. I mean, the food from Puebla, Oaxaca, you know, our indigenous recipes, decolonized cooking. It's all beautiful, and we should be proud of it. It's just it's complex. It uses the best ingredients, and with a lot of love, right? Is how people cook. So yeah, I love Mexican cuisine.
You use the D word, decolonized cooking. In addition to decolonized cooking, what other kinds of decolonization are you
Uh,
focused on?
everything. Everything. Eating, you know, how we eat, how we consume, um, health, how we care for our health, um, how we think, how we heal. So many things that we have yet to learn about, that we that our ancestors would have done and known about before colonization. So I mean, just actively, like really intentionally trying to question, like, is this something? I'm not there yet, obviously, because you know we live in this place where the hegemony is strong, right? Like you are being told on the daily to purchase, buy, you know, get. But you know, we can always try. But yes, there's so many ways to rethink how we do things. So
How do we decolonize education?
um, very carefully, and if you think about who perhaps started some of this, I would have to say, you know, if we think about like Paulo Freire, right? And how long, I mean, how long has how long have his ideas been around, right? And so,
Our listeners, if you haven't read Pedagogy of the Oppressed, you must read.
Yes. So I feel like there's movement afoot. I keep saying, like there's thinking afoot around how we approach learning, and how we, for not just our children, but even anyone in our community, when we try to share knowledge and really try to do it from a place of the knowledge already exists within us. We just need to create the spaces and the opportunity for folks to learn from one another. And I think that it's been around for a very long time, and some places are pretty way more successful than we are at this. So I think, you know, we talk about ethnic studies as being so powerful, and it's so powerful because it is a way of decolonizing our thinking and our learning, right? It's like an example, but look how hard that's been, right? Look how hard that has been. So there's hope. There's new language too, because sometimes when you're trying to change things, you need like language, like verbiage, like terminology to name something and say, well, that is this, and so because it's this, we need to change it to this. There is more language to be able to talk about these things, and so I think if we just keep at it, right? Like we keep bringing up our kids as bilingual, illiterate, critically conscious children, they will then change the system as well. Because remember, most of us are trying to change the system, but we were a product of this same system. So as long as we can continue to cultivate the genius of our children, they will then turn up and change up our system.
So since we're in our last 10 minutes, I wanted to ask you, what else is bringing you joy, has been bringing you joy during this pandemic, in addition to baking, and especially during the stress of elections and all that?
So I really like that I've been able to do more walking exercise. I normally don't take time to care for myself that way. But during the pandemic, because I didn't necessarily always have to be here so late in the office. I actually had time to take walks, to really to eat more health, like in more healthy ways. And it brought me a lot of joy to go on walks with my husband, to listen to podcasts with him and talk about them. But I'll have to tell you, my favorite part of my walk, 2.7 miles, and all sometimes ended at Del Pueblo with some enchiladas and a beer. So that brought me so much joy to take that loop and then end up at Del Pueblo with some good food and being outside. You know, they have a little outside area. I love supporting that restaurant. So shout out to Del Pueblo and Goleta. That walking, and then again, just stopping in for some food and a beer at Del Pueblo.
Yes, thank you, Gloria and Enrique, who are such leaders in our community.
Yes.
Gloria is also a badass mama that we've had on our show briefly during a group session, but I've also been trying to get a date to interview her just by herself because she has so much knowledge to share. So yeah, shout out to the Pueblo Cafe. Is there anything else that hasn't come up during this interview that you would like to share with Que Madre listeners?
I think I would love to just continue to be in community with people. I know it's not easy sometimes to come together. I think the more that we can come together, especially as we see these results of our presidential election roll out, I just think it's so crucial and critical that we continue, right, to be in community. And one of my favorite sayings is, you know, el pueblo unido jamás será vencido. And I think that's so true. I see the election, that in this election, more Latinos than ever have voted. And so como pueblo, we can beat this, right? And so that's my hope, that we continue to work together to be united, even in our differences, within our own diaspora, right? Like that we continue to just be graceful and gracious with one another and continue to do this work together, because there's enough work for everybody so that would be what I would want to leave us with.
Speaking of having our pueblo unido, La Casa de la Raza is approaching our 50th anniversary this upcoming year in 2021. And as a way to commemorate that, we're actually going to have a vote by the Santa Barbara City Council this upcoming Tuesday, November 10th. If you can show up at 2 p.m. via, I think they use GoToWebinar. They have the link on their website for the city of Santa Barbara to officially recognize La Casa de la Raza as a historic landmark. We would really appreciate people's participation, because La Casa has been there for the community time and time again. So now it's time for the community to also be here for La Casa.
Excellent. We will be there.
Well, thank you so much for your time, Maria. I know you're still at the office and I want to make sure you're able to get home before it gets too late, but I really just love your leadership and really appreciate your time. Yeah, and hopefully you'll be on again soon.
Thanks, Anna. You take care. And the appreciation and the respect is mutual.
Thank you. Have a great night.
Thanks. Bye.